Welcome back to another episode of Starting Six, a volleyball podcast with Haley and Liv. This is episode 15 already, which is crazy. We just wrapped up, well, I guess today's Sunday. So, well, no, the games are over. So we just wrapped up week 6, which is also crazy that it's already been this long. Kind of a slower week. It started off slow anyway, we'll say that, but we're still going to give you the rundown, still going to give you our opinions. And at the end of this episode, we'll have our start versus bench. Typically we record on Mondays, so we usually have the new rankings. However, we're working girlies, so we are recording on Sunday instead. So go ahead and head to our social medias tomorrow to see and hear about our thoughts on the new rankings. I wouldn't imagine there's gonna be too much change.
I think kind of towards the middle end of the pack, there's going to be more change than at the top.
Yeah, like I think it'll just be a couple people switching spaces in the middle, but I don't think it's going to be anything too drastic, but keep an eye out for that. That'll be tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
All right. Week 6. Let's kick it off.
Well, first, I just want to mention, before you get started on this, just want to mention that Athletes Unlimited League play started this past weekend. Yeah. So the United States Pro Volleyball team has started their league. It's only a few weeks long, so they just started. All 4 teams played each other twice, I believe, or had some sort of round robin with the 4 teams. But that was super excited. Most or all of the games will be streamed on some sort of ESPN platform. I was able to watch a little bit on ESPN Plus, but I know that it was also on some other free ESPN platforms. So if you can, follow them along on AU Volleyball. I think that's their Instagram page, and it'll show the weekly volleyball schedule. So you can follow along and watch. And it was kind of cool to see some of the recent grad players playing on it. So like Danielle Hart from Wisconsin or Claire Chassé from Louisville, they're playing on those teams. So it's kind of cool to see them right after they graduated playing professionally now. So just wanted to throw that in there before we get started.
Yeah, that'd be a nice thing to sprinkle in here during these kind of slower weeks of conference play. You know, it's just kind of the way that the dice roll, where like these big games don't really happen until a little later in the conference season. So sometimes these games are pretty predictable in terms of their outcome. So that's a great thing to sprinkle in and to just kind of get a taste of, you know, we talk so much about how, because for the longest time, college volleyball is professional volleyball for a lot of us, because of access to streaming platforms, and there hasn't been a professional league in the States. So, you know, to watch these girls, you're probably watching girls who are going to go on to play for Team USA or join this professional league. And so it's a really cool thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, let's go back. We got October 4th is where we are kicking it off. First game I have on my list is number 19 Purdue hosted Illinois in a Big 10 matchup. Pretty easy sweep for Purdue. Those scores were 25-11, 25-19, 25-16. Of course, very predictable if you've listened to episodes that we've done. Ava Hudson and Chloe Chicoine, right?
Fine. Yeah.
They led with 16 kills and 11 kills for Purdue, which is pretty predictable. 16 kills for a 3-set game is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Illinois' top players were Raina Terry, the 6'3" senior outside. She had 12 kills on 39 attempts for a .103%. And then Kayla Burbage, the 6'4" junior pin, she had 7 kills, 0 errors on 17 attempts for a .412%. Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch this game. Not too many notes per se. I would just say, you know, this isn't a surprising outcome. Illinois' hitting percentage was just really bad.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Really.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, because you said Illinois' Raina Terry was their top leader in kills. I didn't watch this game, but I watched Illinois, whoever they played later in the week. Yeah. And the commentators are talking about her. And if I'm remembering correctly, she's like leading or one of the top leaders in total number of attempts, swing attempts, with 794 total attempts on the year so far. So again, this was just week 6, and so that's with their game against Wisconsin. That's who they played. I watched that game. So against Purdue, she had 39 attempts. Against Wisconsin, she had 50 total attempts. When they played Michigan State on September 24th, she had 70 attempts. So I'm pretty sure she is leading the Big 10, if not all of Division I in total attempts with 794, which is a crazy amount to think that she is like their sole provider, I guess you can say, in kills with that many attempts. It's kind of crazy to think about.
And she's a senior. Okay.
She's a senior. Mm-hmm.
Ow, girl, did your shoulder hurt? Because mine would.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Thought it was an interesting statistic, and they kept mentioning it too.
And yeah, I feel like that's something we don't think about. Like, we mention the attempts as part of an understanding of the hitting percentage, but I also just think it's like something that gets kind of glossed over a little bit. And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because there's a couple other games down the line here that we'll talk about where the attempts were just insane. And they were 4 or 5 set matches, so obviously going to be a little bit higher, but still just an insane number for some of these girls. And, you know, like we had mentioned with the Big 12, they play back to back. So when you're putting up 50, 60, 70 attempts in one night, you're turning around and starting over and then doing 40, 50, 60 attempts the next day. That adds up really fast. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme for the remainder of some of these games.
Yep.
That's insane. Okay, so the next one I have is Iowa hosted number 1 Wisconsin, another Big 10 face-off. Wisconsin with another easy sweep, 25-19, 25-18, 25-16. For Iowa, there are 2 names that just always come up, and I'll bring them up again in when we talk about their next match, is Caitlin Butner. I have to say, it has to be Butner, right?
It's gotta be.
Butner, maybe. Butner is better. 6'2", fifth-year outside. She had 12 kills, 1 error on 30 attempts for a .367% and 11 digs for a double-double. And then Natalie Moravec, she's a 6'2" freshman outside, had 10 kills, 5 errors on 34 attempts for a .147%. Not enough when you're playing Wisconsin. Not enough. No. So this game was led by Temi Thomas-Aguilera. I didn't watch this game, but my mom did. And she was texting me, you know, Temi coming alive, so happy to see it. Obviously only a 3-set match, so she put up 10 kills, 2 errors on 26 attempts for a .308. Sarah Franklin, the 6'4" senior outside, followed her with 9 kills. Devin Robinson, 6'2" senior right side, had 9 kills as well. 2 great hitting percentages from both Sarah and Devin. You know, not surprising outcome by any means. Those numbers, I think Iowa did a good job holding Wisconsin's offense. I still think like 10 kills being the highest for Wisconsin that's not a big number. But Wisconsin's hitting percentages were insane. So they hit a .395, a .289, and a .258. So that's hard to shut down.
For sure. I did read that against this team, Iowa is only the 4th opponent this season to hit better than a 200 hitting percentage against Wisconsin. So Wisconsin's been keeping majority of their opponents below a 200 hitting percentage, which surprisingly Iowa hit over that. I don't know the exact stats, but it was just something kind of interesting to see. But then it kind of explains itself when Wisconsin only had the highest number of kills was 10 from one player. So it kind of makes sense when you're looking at the stats, but interesting that it was Iowa that was the team to hit over 200.
Yeah, that's been a recurring theme with Nebraska as well, as holding teams to such a low hitting percentage. It's going to be interesting to see if they can maintain that momentum when they begin to play teams that are going to put up a bit of a bigger fight. Teams like Minnesota, teams like Penn State, teams like Nebraska and Wisconsin, like when they start going at each other, it'll be interesting to see if they can if one of them can kind of keep that momentum a little bit, or if it'll start to fluctuate. So that's definitely really interesting. I mean, Iowa has always been a not good team like at all, but we've been talking about them pretty frequently this year, I feel.
Yeah.
Wild card Iowa. Okay, let's see. Next, I have Alabama hosting Tennessee. Number 12 Tennessee with a very easy sweep. 25-14, 25-23, 25-18. Alabama's top hitter was Kendall Rowe. She's 6'3", senior outside. She had 8 kills, 3 errors on 35 attempts for a .143. And then they had 2 other hitters with 7 kills. Whereas on the flip side for Tennessee, Morgan Fingal, 6'1", fifth-year right side, had 13 kills, 3 errors on 34 attempts for a .294. And Erica with the funniest spelling I've ever seen of Erica. Erica Lovett, 5'11", junior outside, had 11 kills, 3 errors on 29 attempts for a .276. Tennessee has an aggressive and very threatening offense.
Yeah.
They hit a .394, .268, .297 as a team, which is that's high.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to be a team that continues to slowly climb. I haven't watched them since they played Wisconsin really early this year, but on paper, obviously, their numbers look pretty big. So they're going to be competing pretty closely with some of those top 10 teams. They've been slowly climbing each week, and I won't be surprised to see them continue to do so.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, next up, last game I have on October 4th. I have LSU hosting number 13 Arkansas. So this was a pretty easy sweep for Arkansas, 25-20, 25-19, 25-20. But I wanted to put it on because we mentioned her very, very early in the year. I know you started her. Is Journey Robinson, 6'1" freshman outside. She puts up insane numbers every single game for LSU. They're just, as a team, can't pull out these wins. But she is a force to be reckoned with. In a 3-set match, she had 16 kills, 4 errors on 39 attempts for a .308. And then following her was Sana Dotson, 6 foot, fifth-year outside with 11 kills, 3 errors on 28 attempts for a .286%. That's big numbers.
Yeah.
However, Arkansas also knows how to put up big numbers. Jillian Gillen, 5'7", fifth-year outside, with 15 kills, 2 errors on 31 attempts for a .419%. And Taylor Heed, the 5'10" senior outside, had 14 kills, 5 errors on 33 attempts for a .273%, with 14 digs for a double-double.
Yeah.
5'7" and 5'10".
I know.
That's crazy.
And those two are holding the number 1 and number 2 spots for kills per set in the SEC at 4.11. Well, that's Journey Robinson is number 2 behind Jillian Gillen, and Journey Robinson's sets per kill are 4.11. But they're number 1 and number 2. So a 5'7" and a 5'10" hitter are leading the SEC.
Yeah, it's awesome to see, really. It's like, it kind of makes it so much more fun. And obviously they're number 13, so they're high up there. And they heavily out-hit LSU. They hit Arkansas hit a .263 to LSU's .07.
Yeah.
Then they hit a .480 to LSU's .357, and then a .33 to LSU's .308. That's just, you're not going to compete with that. So good matchup. I mean, pretty close scores for a sweep. But I think Arkansas is going to be just like Tennessee and just keep climbing. Those SEC teams sneak up on you fast.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving into the 5th. So, couple double headers here for Big 12. So, on the 5th and the 6th, number 8 Texas hosted number 17 Kansas. So we're just going to knock these both out together. So I did split these up again. I split them up this week, so we can kind of talk about them a little bit separately. Okay. So the scores for the first go around with Texas and Kansas were 25-17, 16-25, 25-18, 25-22, with Texas coming out on top. What a week for Madison Skinner.
Yeah.
So Madison Skinner, the 6'2" junior outside for Texas, on night 1 versus Kansas, she had 18 kills, 5 errors on 48 attempts for a .271% and 10 digs for a double-double. Molly Phillips, the 6'5" senior right side, had 12 kills, 3 errors on 25 attempts for a .360. And Asia O'Neal, the 6'3" senior middle, had 11 kills, 0 errors on 14 attempts for a .786%.
Yeah.
So again, highlighting an outside, a right side, and the middle as your 3 leading hitters and kills just shows Texas is beginning to really spread it out, because for weeks we've been talking about Madison Skinner and Jenna.
Yeah. Jenna, that match was hitting a negative. It
didn't look like she played.
No, I think she must have been playing in the beginning and then got pulled because I think it was like a total of like 4 or 6 kills or something, but was it a high negative percentage?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that she got pulled, but then also seeing that one of your outsides aren't performing well, so then spreading the ball even more, utilizing your other players.
Yeah, and it really paid off for Texas. And I think this is something we talked about last week, if I remember correctly, was just saying, like, every time we talk about Texas, it's the 2 outsides. It's the 2 outsides. Like, Texas has to start spreading it, and they did, and it proved to be successful.
Yeah.
So not saying we had any part in that, but it feels a little bit like we did. But for Kansas, Regan Cooper, 6'2", fifth-year outside, had 17 kills, 4 errors on 39 attempts for a .333%. And London Davis, the 6' junior right side, had 9 kills, 4 errors on 21 attempts for a .238. Night 2, Texas and Kansas, was a sweep. 25-16, 25-15, 25-18. Madison Skinner puts up 22 kills, 3 errors, 37 attempts for a .514%. Yeah. Okay. And then Asia O'Neal, 8 kills, 1 error, 13 attempts for a .538. So there's why they got swept. Yep. And Kansas, again, Logan Davis and Regan Cooper, their top hitters, each had 8 kills. So a big difference from the night before. Madison Skinner just single-handedly tearing Kansas apart. I do want to say Ella Swindle, their setter for Texas, had 35 assists, and Madison Skinner had 22 of those.
Yeah.
Just absolutely insane numbers coming out of her. She's only going to keep getting better. And I think this is something that we've talked about a ton last year and this year, is that she is their biggest threat, and she's going to continue to push and carry when she has to. So I don't think she's had like a bad game yet.
No, not really. And I think in this, even though Kansas might not be the best team or anything like that, I think this is showing the downfall of having a doubleheader can be playing it's one thing to have a doubleheader and be playing 2 completely different teams. When you're playing the same teams in the same arenas, things like that, you can, even though Kansas only took them to 4 in the first match, then they fell to 3 very easily. And I think it's just showing that they didn't have enough stamina, especially their big hitters, Regan Cooper, London Davis. They were putting up good numbers the first match, but then they couldn't even get over 10. I think it's showing, this is a prime example of what you were saying last week, how that schedule just isn't in favor of the athletes at all.
No, and like we talked about it last week too, when you're on the road, playing on the road is hard enough, staying in hotels, not getting probably the proper food, you're not in your own bed. You're probably sleeping with another teammate in a hotel bed. I mean, it just, all those things really add up. Playing Texas at home is hard enough, but then to do it back to back is quite difficult. So I would agree. I think, what we talked about last week totally stands. And it continues.
Yep.
As number 18, Baylor hosted a doubleheader against unranked Kansas State and split.
Yep.
So night 1 against Kansas State was a 5-set thriller, really. These scores are very close. So Kansas State pulled out a win over Baylor, 25-18, 25-14, 22-25, 21-25, 15-13. Now, I think that there's a rhyme and a reason to this.
Okay.
We've talked about it a million times with Baylor's age.
Yep.
But the other problem that I think Baylor has is consistency. So, like, when we talk about Texas, we talk about Madison Skinner. When we talk about Wisconsin, we talk about Devin Robinson. We talk about Nebraska, we talk about Harper Murray. There's like a consistency to a lot of these teams we talk about, and Baylor does not have that. Again, I think it's because of the age. However, you have to have 1, 2, 3 girls on your starting lineup that consistently kind of rotate through who's holding them up.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring this up is because on night 1, Baylor had 3 hitters in their top kills. And then in night 2, the 2 hitters that had top kills from them are not listed in the 3 from the day before. And I just think that consistency is, like, inconsistency is a little tricky for Baylor to find some rhythm. Yeah. And I do think it's because of their age, like, for sure. I just also think, like, that's going to be quite a bit of a struggle because they're putting up big enough numbers and they're putting up a big enough fight and they're remaining ranked. Yeah. But I just think that the inconsistency of who's going to show up today is really starting to hurt.
Yeah, it's a big roller coaster and it plays a big factor in the mindset of all the players. Because if first night you're a top leader in kills and the next night you're hitting negative, then your whole game is off, you know? Not only does it affect just that one individual player, but now it's affecting the whole team on, oh, well, yesterday we could rely on you and now we can't. Who can we rely on? And so they need to figure that out. I'm not saying that anyone has to be perfect or anything, but they need just more consistency in what players are going to stay at the top. If that means having 6 players that are staying at the top, great. Or if that means just 1 player staying at the top, they need something so as a team they can feel more connected and more on a level playing field. Instead, they're just going like this the whole time. And if they can't figure that out before tournament time, they're not going to be able to go very far, because that is when you need all of your players showing up and being consistent.
Yeah, and I just think that was their biggest struggle. I mean, like we said, they split, which they should, because Baylor's ranked and Kansas State is not. Yeah. But I just think that that's a little bit of a struggle. Kendall Stowers, she's 5'11" freshman outside for Baylor. She's the one that we've talked about every time we've talked about Baylor, and she was hitting a .054 and then wasn't one of the top 2 for leading kills for Baylor on night 2. And then Allie, I'm gonna go with Czech.
Okay.
She's a 6'4" sophomore right side. She hit a .023%. That's just not high enough for you to be winning games.
I think those hitting percentage show of freshmen and young players.
The errors. The errors. Like 14 kills, 11 errors. 11 kills, 10 errors. Like, that's not going to win you games. And then, like we said, in night 2, when Baylor defeats Kansas State in 4, barely, I would like to add, the 2 leading hitters are completely different. Yeah. So it's just a little confusing there. Obviously, Baylor's trying to find a rhythm, trying to find what works. I just think they're kind of running out of time. Whereas, like, Kansas State had Aliyah Carter, 5'10", senior outside, had 19 kills on 13 errors with 57 attempts for a .105 and 20 digs for a double-double. Shaylee Myers, 6-foot sophomore pin, had 14 kills, 3 errors on 37 attempts for a .297%. And Anaya Clinton, 6'2" freshman pin hitter, had 10 kills, 7 errors, 26 attempts, and a .115%. And then Aliyah and Anaya were the 2 leading hitters on night 2. Aliyah had 21 kills and Anaya had 9, both hitting over a .250. So there's the consistency a little bit. I think you see it a lot. And I don't watch Kansas State a lot, but with Aliyah being a senior, you probably see that a little bit more out of her. Obviously, she's a constant for them.
Yeah.
But I just think that's where Baylor's going to struggle. They're heavy with the hitting errors.
Yep.
They hit less than 100 in set 1 and set 5, and they hit a 0 in set 2 on night 1. It kind of sucks. The other thing I want to say about this is it kind of sucks for Kansas State to pull out a split here, because a shutout probably would have changed the course of their season.
For sure.
But again, back to back on the road,
it's tough.
Not easy.
No. Yeah.
So Baylor stays alive. Again, they're like a cockroach. Like, you literally cannot get rid of Baylor.
They are. Cannot kill it.
No, not at all. Okay. Now we have fully moved on to October 6th. This was interesting to me. So back in Big 10 play, Michigan State hosted number 2 Nebraska. Nebraska came out with a 4-set win. They won set 1 25-23, dropped set 2 16-25, came back and won 25-15, 25-11. Nebraska is so slow to start on the road.
Yeah.
So slow. And we're going to talk about it again.
Yeah.
So slow.
Yep.
Now, you watched this game.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were texting me during it.
Yeah.
Because Liv texted me and she's like, dude, you got to turn this game on, because Michigan State is like really giving Nebraska a run for their money.
Yeah.
And I joined at the beginning of set 3, and then within like 10 minutes, Liv texted me again. Damn, this sucks, because as soon as I texted you, Michigan State started shitting the bed.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll run over some stats quick, and then I have some thoughts on this, and I want to hear your opinion as well.
Yeah.
So for Michigan State, Taylor Hold'em, 6'2" freshman outside. Hold'em, what a last name. 16 kills, 10 errors on 43 attempts for a .140 hitting percentage and 11 digs for a double-double. And then the following hitter for Michigan State was Grace Kelly, the 6-foot junior outside, with 6 kills, 3 errors, 22 attempts for a .136. So big difference there in the leaders. And that was not the case for Nebraska. You've heard it once, you've heard it a million times from us. Harper Murray, the 6'2" freshman outside, led with 12 kills, 6 errors on 34 attempts for a .176%. Merritt Beeson and Lindsey Krause both had 9 kills. Lindsey Krause was hitting a .381%, with Merritt at a .129. So yeah, Nebraska getting started on the road is definitely something to talk about, because that's going to get a little scary. You're getting into dangerous territory. When they're at home, they're unstoppable.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's because a lot of these girls, it's their first time traveling. Playing an away game is difficult no matter what. But this could be really risky for Nebraska if they can't really figure out how to come out and start hot. I don't know if it's because they're playing teams that really aren't super strong competition. Like, maybe they don't feel like these games weigh as much as others will. Or if it's just jitters, nerves, whatever. But it makes me a little nervous for them. But what I also wanted to say is, what a missed opportunity for Michigan State to try to pull something out. Harper Murray and Merritt Beeson hitting under a 200 is
unheard of.
I don't think it's happened yet.
Yeah. I was going to say, they both
didn't take advantage.
Yeah, they both I don't want to say underperformed, but it was not their best performance by any means. I mean, we're usually expecting both of those hitters to be high teens, low 20s every match, especially with it being a 4-set match. I mean, in the stats, in set 2, Nebraska hit a negative hitting percentage. That's why they lost that second set. Michigan State hit 0.077 in set 1 and a negative in set 4. So it shows in the numbers, but they had a big advantage. They should have at least, not saying that they didn't try, but they could have had the opportunity to at least take it to 5. And I don't know so much of, you mentioned like, is it because of the caliber of the teams that they're playing? But they've been playing like not the best teams at home and are sweeping them.
Right.
So I think it's mainly the venue. And even though when they play at the Bob, there's so many people, it's a sold out and it's so loud, it's all encouragement.
Yeah.
Whereas when they get somewhere else as freshmen, I do think the crowd of a discouraging crowd has a big mental effect on them. And just their nerves get set in, I think, a little bit more than some other teams are showing. So I think these lower teams in the Big 10 really need to see that and run with it. Yeah. And I think the higher teams in Big 10 also need to see it and run with it, because if Wisconsin can get up 2-0 on them, it'll be a clean sweep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. Obviously, I want Nebraska to do well. I think they have probably, in my opinion, they have the highest chance of being a national championship contender. Yeah. We've talked about it for the past couple of weeks. But, you know, taking into consideration that the second half of their season with conference play is going to be playing teams that are also ranked and also have a really high home attendance. It's going to put them behind, and they're going to have to work that much harder to come back to win. And that adds up fast.
Yeah, for sure.
So a little scary for Nebraska, but you know, they pulled it out. It's just, you know, you don't want to see that trend continue too much further. Okay. So the next game I have number 7 Pitt hosting number 11 Georgia Tech. This was a 5-set thriller.
Reverse sweep.
Yeah, literally. So, Pitt was down 23-25, 23-25, and came back and won 25-17, 25-15, 15-8. So a lot of work having to be put in by Pitt. And they did. So Olivia Babcock, the 6'5" freshman right side, had 19 kills, 5 errors on 38 attempts for a .368. Emma Monks, the 6'4" fifth-year middle, had 11 kills, 2 errors on 16 attempts for a .563%. And Chiamaka Noakolo. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to go with that. Noakolo. Is that how you would say it?
I honestly have no idea.
Me neither. Anyway, 5th-year middle blocker. She had 10 kills, 0 errors on 18 attempts for a .556. So big numbers coming out of Pitt, and still went to 5. So, you know, I've been riding or dying for Georgia Tech, and I stand by that. On the flip side, though, so Pitt had 3 hitters putting up over 10 kills and hitting over a 500 and 1 hitting over almost a 400. Yeah. Georgia Tech had Tamaro Tenney, 6-foot senior outside, 23 kills, 11 errors on 50 attempts for a .240. Next hitter with the amount of kills, Larissa Mendez, 6'2" freshman outside, 8 kills, 4 errors, 31 attempts for a .129. So again, you're looking at that 50 attempts. This was a 5-setter, so not, you know, that it's supposed to be higher. Yeah. But obviously she had 23 kills, so she was hot and they were feeding her, but that's a lot of attempts. Yeah. And you know, I've been a fan of Pitt since the beginning, but this made me feel like Georgia Tech's losing a little bit of that momentum that it's been fun to watch them kind of climb the ladder, and I don't want this to set them back. And while Tenney for Georgia Tech put up big numbers, Pitt really just out-hit Georgia Tech when it mattered the most. In set 4, Pitt hit a .233 to Georgia Tech's negative .125. And in set 5, Pitt hit a .412 to Georgia Tech's .056. So when it really came down to it, Pitt just found their groove and they ran away with the game.
Yeah, I still hope for Georgia Tech. It seems like they've been playing some stronger competition and haven't been able to pull through. They've still been competing 4 or 5 sets, but they just can't finish. And I don't know what that may be about. But I don't think that they're going to fall too much. I think they're going to stay in the middle of the pack. And I think there's someone to still watch, and they'll probably come with a few surprises. later in the season. So I still hope and faith for Georgia Tech.
Yeah. I mean, a number 7 to a number 11 matchup, like this is a great game. I think these are two teams that anyone could have taken too. So clearly 1-5.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start talking about the upsets.
Okay.
This is when things get a little crazy. Okay. First I have number 9, Florida hosting number 25, Auburn, and Auburn sweeping.
Just tears, I feel.
Yeah. So the scores were 25-23, 25-20, 25-17. Kennedy Martin, the 6'6" freshman right side for Florida, had 12 kills, 2 errors on 30 attempts for a .333%. And Sophia Victoria, the 6'1" senior outside, had 8 kills, 3 errors on 22 attempts for a .227%. On the flip side, Auburn's Akasha Anderson, the 6'3" sophomore pin, had 18 kills, 4 errors on 35 attempts for a .400. And Madison Shear, the 6'1" sophomore pin, had 14 kills, 2 errors on 18 attempts for a .667%. So 2 things.
Yeah.
First note, yikes.
Yeah.
This is what we were afraid of with Florida. We've talked about it. We've said, they're going to struggle here. They're going to struggle there. This is tough.
Yeah.
You just don't want to see that. I also want to note to keep in mind that this is the same Auburn that lost to then number 14, now number 13, Arkansas, 25-18, 25-10, 25-6 last week. So to be absolutely demolished by a top 15 team and then turn around and sweep a top 10 team.
Yeah.
Auburn, you're making me nervous. Like, who are you? Yeah. And at home, they played Florida at Florida. So that's a tough matchup, but
yeah. I just wanted to give props to the freshman Kennedy Martin. This was her 14th straight match with over 10 kills. So that's pretty impressive for a freshman. Like we said, we expected this to happen to Florida. I don't know if we expected it sooner or later. I'm not sure. I do think that with it happening pretty quickly after losing Alexis Stuckey, I'm thinking that they're going to be able to find their groove by the end of the season and maybe kind of work their way up a little bit. I don't think it'll be anywhere near where they would have been without the injury, but I think this happening now, they will have enough time to figure it out and reconnect and refine their groove for the end of the season.
Yeah, I would not rule Florida out by any means. But this was, what we were predicting and what we were afraid of, and just a really big bounce back for Auburn as well. So
sure,
they're going to be a wild card, I think.
Yeah,
Florida. So we'll see what happens next. The next upset I just tossed this in here to mix things up a little bit. So Marquette, unranked Marquette, had a sweep over number 15 Creighton. Now, I praised Marquette after seeing them play Wisconsin. I thought they put up a big fight in a huge, arena. Stakes were pretty high. And this kind of showed me why. So Marquette won 25-21, 25-23, 25-19. Their leading stats were Aubrey Hamilton, the 6'2" senior outside. She had 13 kills, 2 errors on 29 attempts for a .379. She was giving Wisconsin hell when they played. So she's been a constant for them. Their setter, Yadhira Enchante, 6-foot junior setter. She had a .500 hitting percentage, 32 assists, and 9 digs. And then Sarah Kushner, the 5'10" fifth-year libero out of Illinois State, she had a .500 hitting percentage as well. So she had a kill and a couple attempts in there, 2 aces, 3 assists, and 16 digs. So overall, just kind of a threat around the wheel of Marquette there. And Creighton just really dropping the ball. So Destiny Nadam Simpson, 6-foot freshman outside, 11 kills, 6 errors on 30 attempts for a .167. And then the next highest hitter, Ava Martin, 6-foot sophomore outside, had 8 kills, 3 errors, 29 attempts for a .172. Marquette is threatening. Like, I don't think they're going to be ranked, but they're going to continue to fight against ranked teams like Creighton and like Wisconsin. But this was a big upset. Creighton has really been flying under the radar this year, and to kind of see that this is how they kind of get posted about by NCAA on Instagram is a tough look. So, you know, a big win for Marquette. I think they're a little bit of an underdog. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying they're going to turn the season around and break top 25 or anything like that, but this is a big hit for Creighton for sure.
For sure. Nice.
And we just love the upsets.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going. I got another one.
Perfect.
Maryland gets a big win at home over number 16, Minnesota. So those scores are 25-18, 22-25, 24-26, 25-21, 15-10. Yeesh.
Yeah.
Maryland put some big numbers up. So let's see. Sam Sire, 6-foot senior outside, had 20 kills, 7 errors on 56 attempts for a .232%. Layla Ivy, 6'1" sophomore outside, had 13 kills, 11 errors on 41 attempts for a .049. And then I highlighted Lily Gunter, the 5'8" senior libero, had 19 digs, 2 service errors, and 8 assists. Now, those are good numbers. I mean, Sam putting up 20 kills is like massive, but Minnesota obviously still putting up big numbers. So I have Lydia Grote, 6'2" senior right side, had 18 kills, 6 errors on 43 attempts for a .279. McKenna Wooker, the 6'1" sophomore outside, had 14 kills, 14 errors on 55 attempts, hitting a 0. Taylor Landfair, the 6'5" junior outside, 9 kills, 4 errors, 36 attempts for a .139 and 13 digs. And then Elise McGee, the 5'10" senior setter, she came in for Melanie Schaffmaster, which we'll talk about. But she had a .667 hitting percentage, 39 assists, and 14 digs. You watched this game, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What are your opinions? What are your thoughts?
Well, also Minnesota had 15 service errors.
Oh my God.
So I think it was just like Air City. I don't know what was going on. Maryland it was back and forth. I mean, honestly, I didn't really know who was going to take it, and not even until the 5th set. Like, I didn't know. They were pretty evenly matched the whole time. But I think Minnesota's biggest struggle was not having Melanie Schaffmaster. Not saying that Elise McGee did anything wrong by any means, but she hasn't been playing. And so I think it was just an adjustment. And I think you can see that in some of the errors that the players were having. But I also think Maryland put up some big blocks and was able to shut down Minnesota's offense, such as Taylor Landfair, really well. And they were very scrappy. They wanted it. They were really hyped. They had a lot more energy. It was at home for them. But compared to Minnesota just kind of looked deflated. And all of their players, like no one really, other than Lydia Grote, she's a very spunky player. Like she has a lot of energy and she just like can't stop moving. Other than her, the rest just kind of seemed like going through the motions in a way. Whereas Maryland was hitting their numbers. They were hitting their swings. They were hitting their blocks. They seemed way more like structured and like, okay, we're here to do business. Whereas Minnesota was just like, okay, here, we're going to do it again. And we're going to do it again. They just kind of looked tired. And so I don't know if that was part of traveling or part of the toll that they've had from the season. They've also kind of feel like have had a roller coaster and then been going down the steep slope recently. So that has a lot to do on them mentally. And then I think having some players out and just some inconsistencies with the lineup, I think that can have a big impact too.
Yeah, Minnesota's proving to be quite inconsistent. And it's just not looking up for them. I think also, you know, you and I have experienced too, when you're kind of riding the roller coaster of an up and down season, it's mentally drains you quicker than it can physically drain you.
Yes.
So when you're not mentally there, you're not physically there either. And I think the inconsistencies really taking a toll on Melanie Schaffmaster and on Taylor Landfair for sure.
Yeah.
And I just, mentally that's a hard thing to come back from. Taylor Landfair is still quite young, so I think that's difficult to come around as well. But just, it's just hard. It's hard when you're winning big games and then you're losing games you should have been winning, and then you're losing big games, and then it's all over the place. And I think that inconsistency will catch up to you quicker mentally, and then you don't stand a chance physically.
For sure. And I just wanted to highlight Maryland. This was their first win against Minnesota in 18 matches.
Wow.
So it's been a bit since Maryland beat them. So
what, 9 years?
Yeah, just about.
Wow.
So it was a big win for them. So they were very hyped after that.
Yeah, Maryland's they're a good team. They've been a good team.
Yeah.
You hear about the Terps quite a bit. So yeah. Okay, Minnesota. We'll come back to you. Next, really quick, just highlight nothing crazy happening here, but Illinois hosted number 1 Wisconsin. Wisconsin swept 25-22, 25-15, 25-12. Raina Terry leading Illinois. 50 attempts. 15 kills, 10 errors, 50 attempts for a .100. That's insane. Sarah Franklin actually led the Badgers with 11 kills, 2 errors on 28 attempts for a .321. And Anna Smrek, the 6'9" junior right side, had 10 kills, 1 error on 22 attempts for a .409. What I find kind of interesting about Wisconsin's offense, and it's not the same that I talked about with Baylor. Baylor's offense is inconsistent with who's having a good day, because it could be here, it could be there, it could be, where Wisconsin kind of does it in a more like mature way, where like their offense kind of takes turns having an on day. So like, but in a more structured way. So like Sarah's on, Temmie maybe not so much. Temmie's on, maybe Sarah not so much. Devin's on, Anna maybe not so much. Anna's on, maybe Devin not so much. So it's just kind of interesting to see how, when one's kind of faltering, the other tends to step up. And that could be a number of things. It could be the sets, it could be the service seat, it could be the rotation, God only knows. But it is kind of interesting to see how, Wisconsin's offense, like they do kind of pick up a little bit of that slack, for lack of a better word, for each other. But when Wisconsin has offenses that are their offenses on completely, like you have Sarah, you have Temmie, you have Carter, you have Devin, you have Anna, they're pretty much unstoppable, and that's probably why they're sitting in that number 1 spot. But when they do play these like lower ranked teams and they're sweeping, it's kind of interesting to see it change a little bit. Is it going to be Anna? Is it going to be Devin? Is it going to be Temmie? Is it going to be Sarah? So it's just kind of interesting to see that. Illinois' hitting percentage just didn't stand a chance. Wisconsin hit over 300 in set 1 and 2 and a 560 in set 3. Illinois hit a .196, a negative .026, and a .048. So that's just not going to work.
No. And Wisconsin is 1 win short of having their best opening in program history. I think the other best one right now is their 2013.
Oh.
Right? I think when they were like undefeated or something like that. Don't quote me on it. But kind of cool. They have won for Big 10 their last 24 matches, and they have won the last 21 sets. So they are just 1 match short of having the best opening in program history, which is
cool. And 2013 is the national finalist team. So they didn't win it, but they played it in the national championship game. So that would make sense. Okay. Wisconsin undefeated. Alrighty. Next. Same thing that we talked about earlier. Not Michigan State, but Michigan hosted number 2 Nebraska, and Nebraska swept. Set 1, 29-27. and then decided 25-17, 25-14. Why? Like, why are they doing this? Like, genuinely, like, what is happening? And like, Michigan's best hitter had 8 kills, 0 errors, 18 attempts for a .44. Then the other two had 6 kills. Lindsey Krause put up 15, Harper Murray put up 13, and Merritt put up 10. Why are you going 29-27?
Yeah, and like we said before, them being young and them being on the road, that's what all the announcers were saying. Like, that has had a big impact on them. Every road game that they have had, they're starting that first set, they're either losing or they're barely winning. So it's something about getting the jitters out, and then they're like, oh yeah, we forgot how to play. Here's Nebraska volleyball. Here you go. And it's like, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, you're going to be on the road. Like, it's not like, you know, the first game they played on the road, it was a really slow start. Like, no, this has been a trend for every single away game that they've played in. Like, they're coming out with a win, but they're starting out slow. And that's a really just bad habit for them to fall into. And, you know, I thought maybe it was just Michigan State putting up a big fight. No, it's happening against regular Michigan. So regular Michigan. So, you know, Nebraska unharmed, you know, still undefeated, but
this game was, I did watch it. And this one was cool and I didn't know, but what was really special about this is, so Harper Murray is a freshman on Nebraska. Her sister, Kendall Murray, is a senior on Michigan. They both wear 27 in honor of their late dad. And it is where they are from. So this was Harper's first time being back in her hometown, or home state at least. And so she had they both had a lot of family members. And you could see her mom was wearing a 27 hat, one with yellow or blue, and then the other with red, and then a shirt with it. So it was really cute. Just something kind of cool. I had no idea that.
No, I didn't either.
Had a sister, let alone that played in the Big 10 as well. So they will have one more face-off in Nebraska later this year.
Yeah, she kind of did like her mom did like a Donna Kelsey and split down the middle. The pictures were really cute, and there was one of the three of them just kind of hugging in like a circle, and you know, obviously probably honoring their dad in some way. And I just thought, I did see pictures of that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, what do we have next? Number 19, Purdue comes out with a win over Iowa in a sweep, 25-16, 25-17, 25-23, same leaders for Purdue. Nothing new here. I will say Chloe Ciccone put up Ciccone. How can I not say this right? Ciccone. Coney. It's the O-I-N-E that makes me think it's Oiny. Okay. Anyway, whatever. The last names is not my specialty. I don't know what you want me to say. She put up 17 kills with 2 errors on 33 attempts for a .455 and 10 digs for double-double.
Insane.
She's crazy. Yeah, and then Iowa, same thing. Caitlin Butner and Natalie Moravec putting up 9 kills and 8 kills. Caitlin hitting a .083 and Natalie hitting a .217. Not surprised, but Purdue's a wild card, so you just never know. You never know.
And I mean, with Purdue, Chloe and Eva just go back and forth. Like you kind of mentioned with Wisconsin, they just every other game, someone else is the leader, but it's only those two. Hasn't been another leader up there. Maybe the middle, Raven Colvin, is the third one, but she's always the third highest hitter. Otherwise, it's always Chloe and Eva. So come harder competition, it's really easy to shut down. Just hone in on your outside hitters and you'll be fine.
I think that's going to bite them pretty fast. Okay, next up we had a big match in the Big 10. So number 14 Penn State hosted number 24 Ohio State and won in 5. Those scores were 25-23, 23-25, 20-25, 25-21, 15-7. This is where we're going to talk about these attempts again, because this is absurd. So Jess Merzick, the 6'1" senior outside for Penn State, had 21 kills, 12 errors on 69 attempts. She hit a .130 and had 12 digs for a double-double. 69 attempts. That is insane. The next top hitter for Penn State was Alexa Markley, the 6'2" sophomore pin hitter, had 15 kills, 5 errors on 43 attempts for a .233. And then Mac Pedraza, 6'2" fifth-year setter, had 48 assists and 14 digs. But Jess Mersick isn't the only one. For Ohio State, Emily Londat, obviously, the 6'3" senior outside, had 16 kills, 14 errors on 65 attempts. She hit a .031% with 12 digs for a double-double.
Wow.
However, I'd like to talk about this because for whatever reason, Ohio State finally decided, okay, Emily Londat's not going to be enough to win us games. So they decided to start spreading the wealth. Chelsea Thorpe, the 6'3" sophomore outside, had 15 kills, 8 errors on 41 attempts for a .171%. And Riley Rader, the 6'2" senior middle, had 13 kills, 1 error on 29 attempts for a .414%. Finally, literally finally.
I watched this, and I think there should have been more hype to this match. It's a top 25 matchup in the Big 10, but also this is Mac's old team. She just played there for 4 years, and now she's at Penn State playing her old team at Penn State. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big deal. Mac knows everything about Ohio State. Ohio State knows everything about Mac Pedraza. Okay. And so I'm not super surprised that it was so close because of those factors.
Yeah.
But I think they were forced. I think Ohio State was forced to spread the wealth because Penn State shut down Emily Londat in the first 2 sets. Like, she couldn't get around the block.
Yeah.
So I think they were forced to use their right side and forced to use their middles because nothing was working for them otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, finally. Finally. It took you that long, and now you have hitters that are putting up 1 less kill than Emily. Like, where have you been? Like, why has this not been the trend for Ohio State? And it's clearly paying off.
Yeah.
Like, clearly. Just, it's so frustrating. Like, what the hell? Like, figure it out. The only other note I have is, like, almost 70 attempts. Are you insane? That's insane.
I know. It is insane. And, I mean, I just think all around, both teams played a very strong match. Their defense was very, very good. Something to note, Penn State is number 1 in blocks per set for the Big 10, and they're number 2 for kills per set in the Big 10, which is super interesting to look at, thinking that they're number 14, they're not Wisconsin, they're not Nebraska, and they're number 2 for kills per set.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just that they've just kind of had to fight a little bit harder. One thing, and I don't know if this is the case, this would just be like my intuition, is Nebraska and Wisconsin haven't been in these matches, haven't been going as many sets as Penn State. So obviously
I would agree if it was just like kills total, but because it's kills per set, they're taking each individual set.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, still more sets, but more sets would probably mean more errors, which would probably make it lower. So that is a good point. I didn't know that. I didn't know they let in blocks either.
Yeah.
I mean, their middle is so good, so that isn't like crazy surprising, but it is a little bit too, just because of their record.
Yeah, and you could totally tell in this game that they are number 1 in blocks for the Big 10. They were closing, they were turning their hands in. It was very hard for Ohio State to get around it, but then when they did, they were usually able to execute. But Penn State's libero, Jillian Grimes, she had 23 digs. She's very good. She's a young player, and she's all over the place. So it was I loved watching it. It was a really good match. And I was just really happy that Penn State pulled out the win.
So. Yeah, that was a close call.
Yeah.
Okay, last one for October 7th, which would be yesterday. Rutgers hosted number 16 Minnesota and won in 4. Yeah. So those scores were 25-20, 25-22, 16-25, 25-14. Now, Rutgers put up some big numbers. Alyssa Kinkella, 6'4" sophomore outside, had 17 kills, 8 errors on 40 attempts for a .225% and 13 digs for a double-double. Anna Hartman, the 6'2" freshman outside, had 12 kills, 1 error on 27 attempts for a .407%. And Ricky Williams, your 6'1" sophomore middle, had 10 kills, 4 errors on 24 attempts for a .250. Minnesota was there, but not at the same time. So McKenna Wooker, 16 kills, 4 errors on 41 attempts for a .293. Lydia Grote with 13 kills, 5 errors on 37 attempts for a .216. And Taylor Landfair, 12 kills, 2 errors on 31 attempts for a .323. So it looked like they were kind of right there with Rutgers, just not as high, really. The hitting percentages for Rutgers were just higher. However, Melanie Schaffmaster comes back for this one.
Yeah.
I didn't watch.
I think they might have done like a 6-2 because both setters, her and Elise McGee, had assists. Elise had 13. Melanie had 23. So that was making me, because I didn't watch this either, but it was making me think that maybe they ran a modified 6-2.
You're probably right. It'll be interesting to see how long that lasts, because obviously, like we talked about last week, Melanie Schaffmaster was wearing a massive knee brace that took up basically her entire leg.
Yeah.
She looked slow. She looked frustrated. So I'm wondering if this is Minnesota's way of trying to buy some time.
Yeah.
But clearly, after losing to Maryland, they were under the impression that they needed Melanie Schaffmaster, which I don't necessarily think was the case, judging by Elise McGee's numbers. But, what do I know? And Minnesota can't pull it off on the road again. Something kind of cool to note is this is Rutgers' first win over a ranked opponent ever.
Yeah.
And this was also their first conference win of the year. They're 1-5.
Nice.
They're 1-5 in the Big 10. And that one is over a ranked team.
That's awesome.
That's the Big 10. That's what it is. That's what you get.
Yep.
Oh, Minnesota. We say that like once an episode. Oh, Minnesota.
I know. They need some help. They need serious team bonding or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Change.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 matches that I want to talk about that happened today. The first one is number 4 Washington State, who was my starters last week. They hosted number 3 Stanford. Now Stanford came out with a win, but these scores are crazy.
I know. I'm so upset.
I'm pissed we couldn't watch. I'm pissed.
So upset.
So the scores were 31-29, 29-27, 23-25. 25-18. So Stanford went up 2, dropped the third set, finished in the fourth. This is, both teams are very heavily upperclassmen led. So I'm sure that this was just a great fucking game to watch. I'm so pissed. Unbelievable. This wasn't on a free network to watch, correct? Like this wasn't on cable, which is just, I'm not going to go crazy on this, but this pisses me off because this is a top 5. This is a top 5 face-off on a Sunday, and you couldn't find one channel to put it on?
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know how this all works, but these games, or like this, they should not be deciding what games get broadcasted on cable prior to the season starting, or like, it should be like week by week, I almost feel like, because of things like this. Was Washington State ranked in the beginning? I don't know. If they were, it's probably lower, but now they're number 4 facing number 3, and it's not nowhere to be watched.
Yeah, like, and it really blows my mind that no one could figure out a channel to put this on, because on Sundays it's NFL, and the NFL is strict to a couple of channels. So I'm a little bit confused why an ESPN or an ESPN2 or an ESPNU couldn't have picked this up. It's a top 5 face-off. Like, figure it out.
Exactly. Like, you need to adjust during season because you have to have these games being able to be streamed.
I would agree. And this was probably a great one to watch. Hopefully when it's reversed and Stanford is hosting them, we'll be able to watch, because this really bugged me. Okay, anyway, we got a little hothead there. Moving on. So Washington State's stats here. So Katie Ryan, the 6'5" junior right side, had 14 kills, 5 errors on 23 attempts for a .391%. Aman Isanovic, she's a 6'1" fifth-year outside. She's pretty much their best offensive player, I would say, for the most part. Yeah. 14 kills, 5 errors on 45 attempts for a .200. She had 14 digs for a double-double. And then Argentina Ung, that's what I'm going with, Ung. 6-foot senior setter had a .333 hitting percentage, 42 assists, and 17 digs. But Stanford's numbers are crazy. So Ella Rubin, 6'1" sophomore outside, had 21 kills, 10 errors on 55 attempts for a .200 and 10 digs for a double-double. Kendall Kipp, pretty much the face of Stanford's offense. Yeah. She's the 6'5" fifth-year right side, had 20 kills, 7 errors on 56 attempts for a .232%. And Katie Baird, the 6'3" senior outside, had 18 kills, 1 error on 35 attempts for a .486. So obviously this is going to be a great matchup, but those numbers that Stanford's putting up, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, you can't come back for that. But this is, and what we were arguing is, this is what a number 3 and a number 4 team this is what a matchup looks like between a top 5 teams. This is what we're going to get out of the Big 10 as the second half of the conference. But these games are happening now, and there's nowhere for you to watch.
Yep.
It's so annoying. Like, you 1 step forward, 3 steps back. That's really how it feels sometimes. Yeah, that's so frustrating. This would have been a great game to watch.
For sure.
Washington's, oh my God. I'm such a fan of Washington State. So on the train. Yeah. Obviously, Stanford clearly on paper deserved to take this. It's not surprising with those numbers. And they're going to continue to be great. But Washington State has slowly clawed their way up that list. And I want to see them really continue to dominate.
I know.
But this is what a number 4 and a number 3 team would look like. Like, this is what the matchup looks like. 31-29. Oh my God.
When I saw that, my jaw literally dropped, because obviously, like we said, we couldn't watch it. So I was looking at it and I was like,
that's crazy.
Are you serious? I was so upset. But I was like, this is what we should see. This is what we should see, and we are seeing it.
So do better.
Please.
I'm blaming ESPN for this one. Do better. Okay. Last one I want to highlight, and then you can let me know if I miss anything that happened today. Virginia hosted number 11 Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech came out with a win, but in 5. So these scores are kind of funky. So they went back and forth. So Georgia Tech won 25-11, lost 21-25. Won 25-12, lost 22-25. And then in the 5th, they came back and won 15-13.
Interesting.
So really kind of a funky game. Yeah. That's a roller coaster of a game.
Yeah.
Virginia put up some pretty big numbers. So Brooklyn Borum, 6-foot junior outside, had 15 kills, 5 errors on 48 attempts for a .208 hitting percentage and 13 digs for a double-double. Gigi Carvacho, 6'3" senior outside, had 13 kills, 6 errors on 42 attempts for a .167%. And Varesia Yan, 6'1" fifth-year middle, had 12 kills, 4 errors on 30 attempts for a .267. So good numbers coming out of Georgia. Virginia. However, Georgia Tech, Tamara Oteni puts up 20 kills, 5 errors on 43 attempts for a .349% and 21 digs for a double-double. Larissa Mendez has 17 kills, 6 errors on 40 attempts for a .275%. And Bianca Bertolino, 6-foot junior outside, 14 kills, 5 errors on 46 attempts for a .196 and 14 digs for a double-double. So just big numbers coming out of Georgia. Like, they're scary good. Georgia Tech is like scary good. But what I really liked about this, and why I really wanted to note it, is the ACC conference that includes Pitt, that we talk about pretty frequently, is showing that there's a lot of great competition in the conference that's prepping teams like Pitt and teams like Georgia Tech for the postseason. So
sure.
I think that that's something to note, because we talked about that with Louisville, who we didn't talk about this week, but because they were sweeping, so not a big deal. But they're in a conference that doesn't feel to me like it preps them for what comes after the conference season. And it's kind of nice to see that the ACC, we talk about the Big 10 a lot, the Big 12, the SEC. So it's kind of nice to see that the ACC is giving these teams a little bit of a push and keeping them kind of at like the top of the mountain a little bit here, kind of keeping them prepped and ready for the postseason, because that's where a lot of teams tend to struggle.
For sure.
Okay, that's all I had. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
All right. We're going to do our start versus bench, because we don't have a new ranking to talk about because it's Sunday. Nope. So let's do our start and bench. What would you like to start with?
Let's start with our bench.
Okay, you can go first.
Okay. So my bench for this week are the announcers for these games. Especially on, I believe it's FS1 and Big 10 Plus, I think they were on. Okay, so on normal Big 10, the Big 10 network, those are great announcers. Emily Eamon is usually on there with some other like standard people, but then you get these offset channels that are trying to put announcers up there. And there's one, and who was playing? I don't know who it was, but even Jack made a comment like, who are these people? There was two guys, and it was horrendous. They had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, at least put people, retired players, college grads, like someone who actually knows the game, and maybe you read about it and you have an understanding of how the game works, but you truly don't unless you've played it. So please get out of there. Like, you are making this game so hard to watch when you are trying to commentate and tell me what just happened. It's absurd. It's horrible.
Yeah, there's been a couple matches that I think we've briefly mentioned some of this, and we text about it, but my mom has said something to me before for games that we've watched together and separately, where she's like, I had to mute the TV. Like, she's like, I can't listen to this anymore. Sometimes, I don't know if it's a big plus. Well, yeah, it must be. Sometimes some of the schools that play have like a broadcast major or something where they have those kids do it. So it's like young college kids, typically men, doing it that maybe don't watch too much. Northwestern had students doing it, but it seemed like they had done it before. So they were like, because they were talking about Temmie and talking about her stats, and like it just kind of seemed like they knew what they were doing. But I have watched some where college students or not, it's bad, because the Big 10 has designated announcers for volleyball. So like when the Big 10 network is on, those people are ex-volleyball players, or they're broadcast analysts for volleyball specifically. And when you don't have that, it is painful.
It's so bad. They try to make like these analogies about volleyball or using volleyball lingo. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not a spike, sir. It's a kill or it's a hit. We don't say spike here anymore. We don't say bump. Okay, get out of here.
Yeah, those are the worst. Yeah,
if you're gonna announce it, know what you're doing, please, because like we're getting so much more coverage than we have in the past, and now you're drawing people away because your announcers are so bad.
And you can't learn the game that way either. Like, I think a lot of the times, like, especially I notice this as a fan, like when I watch football per se, like I don't always understand everything that's going on. So like, while there's probably people who watch football avidly that they're like, it's so annoying that these announcers are always talking. For me, I'm kind of like, wait, no, I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I don't understand the penalty. Like, so sometimes you're kind of learning from them. And when you're in a position where you don't watch a ton of volleyball, but the announcers aren't using the same lingo as the next match you're going to watch, or what they're saying isn't even real and accurate, it kind of sucks. Like, you don't get to really actually like learn what's going on. Ugh, you're right. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a really good poll. Okay, so mine's Michigan State. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I just think they just absolutely blew the biggest opportunity they're going to have all year. They just wasted an absolute opportunity to take Nebraska down. Like, you're not going to get Harper Murray hitting that percentage again. You're not going to get Merritt Beeson hitting that percentage again. I just think it was, a missed opportunity for them. They are 3-3 in Big 10 play, so they're contenders for doing fairly well. And I just think that trying to put up either more of a fight or winning over Nebraska would have been a game changer for the remainder of their conference play. Mm-hmm. The other thing too, why I'm choosing to bench them, is because their next match is at Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's not gonna look even remotely close.
Oh.
Sorry, Michigan State, but it's not. Nebraska is an absolute machine at home, and they're not gonna have the same momentum that Michigan State did while playing at Michigan State. So I think they blew a big opportunity. It's not like the biggest bench I've ever had, but it just really I was just kind of like, really? And for really just turning it off when I decided to put the broadcast on, that's annoying too. I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
So rude.
Yeah, it was annoying.
Yeah, so Michigan State, thumbs down this week. Hopefully you do okay at Nebraska. I'm praying for you. All right, let's do our starts. Go for it.
My start is senior middle blocker from Texas, Asia O'Neal. Mm-hmm. Primarily for her outstanding performance against Texas on October 5th. 11 kills, 0 errors, hitting a 786 hitting percentage.
Wait, against who?
Kansas.
You said Texas.
Oh, jeez. No, Texas.
I'm just looking out for your sister. Yeah. I got you.
So 786 hitting percentage, 5 digs, 5 block assists. The next day, against Kansas, she had 8 kills, 1 error, hitting a 538 hitting percentage, 4 block assists. On the season, she is hitting a .392 hitting percentage, has 71 kills, only 11 hitting errors for the season, which is, it's kind of just looking at that number, you only have 11 hitting errors. It's kind of insane to look at.
That is crazy.
She is totaling 4 solo blocks, 61 block assists on the season. She is number 3 in blocks per set with 1.59 blocks per set. And Texas as a team is number 2 in blocks per set. And this past weekend, she just hit her 500th career block. So she's a pretty consistent blocker and hitter for Texas. She's one of those constant players that you can rely on as a middle. They're not getting all of the attempts or swings or anything like that. But she has a pretty cool story too. She had 2 open heart surgeries when she was younger. So being able to come back from that 10 years or so later and be able to perform at a very high level in a sport where you do have endurance and things like that is really impressive. And I know she also played on not the junior Olympics, but the national team and things like that. So I think she's going to do really well after her season in pro volleyball and possibly the Olympics or a national team. So she is my starter for this week.
Yeah, that's a good pick. She's a constant for them. Yep. And to have a middle who puts up big numbers like that is so crucial. So she's definitely a big part of their success. Yeah. My start is also a player. We didn't talk about this team this week, but my start is going to be Erin Livingston. She's BYU's 6'2" senior outside. She's crazy.
I thought about doing her.
Yeah. Anytime that I honestly thought this would be the week we would have the same.
I know. I thought about it.
I was like, ooh, this could be close.
Yeah.
So I enjoy watching BYU. They're very good. They had a pretty clean week this week, so we didn't really talk about them too much. But every time we do, she's usually at the top of the leaderboard. On October 7th, they swept Oklahoma, so they only had 3 sets, and she had 22 kills, 1 error on 29 attempts for a .724%, which is her season high and I believe her career high.
Wow.
22 kills on 29 attempts is absolutely crazy. Yeah. And if she hadn't have had that error, it would have been even higher.
Yeah.
So that's a huge number. So some of her stats on this season alone, she has 230 kills already this season. She averages 3.966 kills per set. And she has an average hitting percentage of a .260. She also has 79 digs and averages 1.362 digs per set. So she's just a threat for them. Yeah. BYU is going to be a big team in the postseason, and I think her leading them will bring them a lot of success. So a .724 hitting percentage with 22 kills is insane. And like I said, it was her season high, and I believe her career high. So I just thought that deserved a big shout out. If you haven't got the opportunity to watch BYU, I highly suggest doing so.
Yeah, good pick.
Thank you. We killed it this week.
We did. Okay.
Do you want to go over some coming up games, or it's already been almost an hour and a half, so we might maybe call it.
I'm trying to think. We kind of went through before we started recording some of the big ones that we had seen. A lot, again, Big 10 play, conference play.
It's really a lot on like Friday and Sunday, and a few sprinkled in on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah. So some notable ones. What is now the rankings? Number 7 Pitt plays number 6 Louisville at Louisville.
I'm really excited for that one.
Number 2 Nebraska plays Michigan State at Nebraska. So there you have it. Number 1 Wisconsin plays Rutgers at home.
That could be good.
Number 21 Houston plays number 8 Texas at Houston.
Ooh, an in-state battle.
Yeah, I think this will be a good match. Number 12 Tennessee is playing number 25 Auburn at Tennessee.
Auburn coming in swinging.
And those are all on Friday the 13th. So hopefully there's some good juju there. On the 14th, number 2 Nebraska plays number 14 Penn State at Nebraska. Ooh. Again, Houston and Texas play. Those are kind of the big ones for Friday or Saturday. And then Sunday we have Maryland playing number 1 Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Number 5 Oregon playing number 23 Arizona State at Oregon. Number 12 Tennessee playing number 22 Kentucky at Tennessee. Number 24 Ohio State playing number 19 Purdue at Ohio State. So I think that'll be a good Big 10 matchup.
That'll be good at Ohio State.
Yeah, and that's kind of all the big ones, the big notable ones to watch. But as always, watch as many as you can that you're able to be streaming. So
perfect. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up week 6. This, we got on this call and we were like, I don't think it'll be too bad. Wasn't anything crazy. And here we are an hour and a half later. So we're going to wrap it up. Again, like we said, be sure to check out our socials. We're going to be highlighting some stuff throughout the week, including Liv's thoughts on the new rankings that come out tomorrow afternoon. So keep an eye out for that. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, the whole thing. TikTok's really where we thrive. So be sure to find us on there. And thank you guys again for watching. We appreciate you. And also make sure you're subscribed.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. See you next week.